Welcome back to Old Charles, the channel where we explore the fascinating world of rare and historical coins from around the globe. Today, we are diving into the story, the history, and the true value of the United Kingdom 5 new pence coin from 1979. If you've ever found one of these in your collection, or maybe stumbled upon it in an old drawer, then stick around because you might be holding a little piece of numismatic history. To understand the 1979 5 new pence coin, we first need to go back to the decimalisation of British currency in 1971. Before this major reform, the UK used pounds, shillings, and pence in a very complex system that was centuries old. But in February of 1971, the United Kingdom officially shifted to a decimal-based currency system, simplifying everything into pounds and 100 new pence. The 5 new pence coin was introduced in 1968, a few years before the actual decimalisation took place. This was done to help the public gradually adjust to the new system. At that time, the 5 new pence replaced the old 1 shilling coin but retained the same size and value, which made the transition smoother for people who were used to the old currency. Now, fast forward to 1979, the coin we're focusing on today. This was still part of the original small-sized decimal coinage. The design remained consistent with the earlier issues, a crowned Scottish thistle on the reverse side, symbolizing Scotland, and of course, the obverse carried the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. The 1979 coin continued this iconic design that had already become familiar to millions. Let's break down the design of the 1979 5 new pence coin. This side shows the second definitive portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin. Her image faces right, wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Around the edge, the Latin inscription reads, Elizabeth II DG Reg. F.D. which stands for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith. The reverse design, created by Christopher Ironside, features a crowned thistle, the national emblem of Scotland, with the denomination new pence, and the number 5. The coin was made of cupronickel, an alloy of copper and nickel, with a weight of 5.65 grams and a diameter of 23.59 millimeters. The 1979 issue of the 5 new pence was produced in hundreds of millions of pieces, which means it was a common circulation coin at the time. It wasn't rare in everyday use. In fact, it was one of the most commonly exchanged coins throughout the UK during the late 1970s and 1980s. However, things changed in 1990, when the Royal Mint decided to reduce the size of the 5 pence coin to make it more practical. The older, larger 5 new pence coins, including the 1979 version, were gradually withdrawn from circulation after 1992. This means that while they're no longer used in everyday transactions, they survive today in the hands of collectors and hobbyists. So, what is the 1979 5 new pence coin worth today? Because of its high mintage, most 1979 5p coins are still fairly common. If you have one in circulated condition, meaning it has been used in everyday transactions and shows signs of wear, its value is usually around 10 to 30 pence to collectors. That's slightly above its original face value but not particularly rare. However, things change if your coin is in uncirculated or brilliant uncirculated condition. These are coins that were never used in everyday circulation and were preserved in mint state. Such coins can sell for around £1 to £3, sometimes higher if they're graded by professional services and kept in pristine condition. If you own a proof version, coins specially struck for collectors with sharper details and mirror-like finishes, the value could rise to £5 to £10 depending on the market and condition. While the 1979 5 new pence isn't considered extremely rare or valuable, it does carry historical interest and holds a small premium for collectors who focus on British decimal coinage. When it comes to coins, condition is everything. Let's quickly go over the grading scale for the 1979 5 new pence. Collectors today often seek out full decimal coin sets, which means even a common 1979 5p can be a necessary piece to complete a collection. That's why even though it's not highly valuable on its own, it remains popular in the numismatic community. To wrap it up, the 1979 United Kingdom 5 new pence coin might not make you instantly rich, but it represents a fascinating chapter in British coinage history. It tells the story of decimalisation, national identity through coin design, and the everyday life of millions of people who used it before it was eventually phased out in the 1990s. If you have one of these coins in your collection, treasure it as a reminder of Britain's transition into modern currency. And if you're just getting started in collecting, the 1979 5p is a wonderful and affordable piece to begin your journey. To really understand the 1979 5 new pence coin, we have to take a trip back into the past, not just to the late 1970s, but to the entire period of Britain's decimalization and how it reshaped the nation's currency system. For centuries, Britain used a traditional system of pounds, shillings, and pence. 1 pound was divided into 20 shillings, and each shilling was divided into 12 pence, meaning there were 240 pence in a pound. While this system had deep historical roots, it was complicated for accounting, trade, and especially for international dealings in the 20th century when more countries were moving to decimal-based currencies. By the mid-20th century, pressure began mounting to modernize. Other Commonwealth nations, like South Africa in 1961 and Australia in 1966, had already adopted decimal systems. The British government decided it was time to follow suit. The official change came on Decimal Day, 15 February 1971, when the entire nation switched to a system of 100 new pence to the pound. But here's where the story of the 5 new pence becomes especially interesting. This coin was first introduced in 1968, 3 years before decimalization actually took effect. The reason? The government wanted people to become familiar with the new coins before the big changeover. The 5 new pence replaced the old 1 shilling coin, which had been in use for generations. Importantly, the new 5p had the exact same size, weight, and metal composition as the shilling, so people could continue to use both interchangeably during the transition period. This clever move made decimalization smoother and less confusing for the public. The design chosen for the reverse side was by Christopher Ironside, one of Britain's most respected coin designers. He selected the crowned Scottish thistle as the emblem for the 5p, symbolizing Scotland's place within the United Kingdom. Every denomination in the new decimal system carried a national emblem, and the thistle gave the 5p a strong sense of identity. Now, moving into the 1970s, the 5p coin had firmly established itself as part of everyday life in the UK. In shops, in markets, in pocket change, it was everywhere. By 1979, Britain was in the midst of a period of major political and economic change. Inflation during the 1970s was high, and the purchasing power of coins like the 5p was slowly shrinking. At the start of the decade, 5p could buy you a newspaper, a loaf of bread, or a bus fare. By the end of the 1970s, its buying power had dropped significantly, but it was still an important denomination for small daily transactions. The 1979 issue of the 5 new pence was struck at the Royal Mint in Llantrisant, South Wales, the modern facility that had replaced the historic Tower Hill Mint in London during the 1960s. Millions of these coins were produced, making them very common at the time. What makes this coin historically significant is not rarity, but what it represents: a bridge between the old pre-decimal coinage of Britain and the modern decimal system. It also reflects the wider story of Britain's economy in the late 20th century, where inflation, industrial change, and a shift toward modernization shaped everyday life. But the story doesn't end there. In 1990, the government decided that the large-size 5p coin, including the 1979 issue, was simply too big and bulky compared to its relatively low value. A smaller, lighter version of the 5p was introduced that year, and by 1992, the old large 5p coins were officially demonetized. That means they could no longer be used as legal tender, so the 1979 5 new pence represents the final era of the large-size design, which is why collectors today still appreciate it. It's not just a coin, it's a marker of Britain's journey through modernization, inflation, and economic change. When it comes to coins, one of the most important factors that determines value and desirability is condition. The same 1979 5 new pence coin could be worth just a few pence or several pounds, depending entirely on how well it has been preserved over the years. Let's take a deep dive into coin condition and grading, so you know exactly what to look for. Every coin tells a story through its wear. The 1979 5p, being over 40 years old, has passed through countless hands, shops, buses, banks, and pockets. With each transaction, tiny scratches, nicks, and loss of detail occurred. This natural process is what we call circulation, where collectors use a grading scale to describe a coin's condition. The most common system runs from heavily worn good coins all the way up to perfect, mint-state coins. Let's break it down for the 1979 5p. The coin is very heavily worn. The Queen's portrait is flattened, and details of the thistle on the reverse are faded. Letters around the edge may be hard to read. Value, usually just face value or slightly above. Some details are visible, but wear is still heavy. The thistle crown looks smooth, and the Queen's hair is flat. Value, around 10p, 20p. The coin has moderate wear. Major design features are still sharp, though small details are starting to fade. Letters are clear, and the coin still looks attractive. Value: 20p, 50p. Light wear only. The high points of the Queen's portrait may show a little flattening, but most details are crisp. The thistle and crown are well defined. Value: about 50p £1. Almost no wear. The coin looks fresh, with only minor marks from handling. Value: £1 to £2. This is the condition every collector dreams of. No signs of circulation at all. The coin has its original shine, sometimes called mint luster. Under magnification, you might see tiny bag marks from storage at the mint, but overall, it's flawless. Value: £2 to £3 or higher. These were struck specially for collectors with extra care. The dies used were polished, and the coins have a mirror-like finish with frosted designs. Proof coins of the 1979 5p were sold in sets and never intended for circulation. These are highly prized today, often selling for £5 to £10 or more. Most 1979 5p coins found today are in circulated condition. That's because they were produced in very high numbers and used widely for everyday purchases. For collectors, these worn coins are historically interesting but not very valuable. Where condition really matters is for serious collectors who want coins in top quality. A complete set of decimal coins in uncirculated condition is much harder to assemble than a set of worn pocket change coins. That's why dealers and collectors will always pay more for coins that look fresh from the mint. If you happen to own a 1979 5p in good condition, it's important to store it properly. Keep it away from moisture, dirt, and oils from your skin. Ideally, place it in a protective coin flip, capsule, or album page. Never polish the coin. While it may seem like a good idea to make it shine, polishing actually damages the surface and reduces its value to collectors. For higher value coins, collectors sometimes use professional grading services like NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, or PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service. These companies examine the coin under magnification, assign it a grade, and seal it in a protective holder. While the 1979 5p is generally not rare enough to justify grading, proof examples or high-quality uncirculated pieces may be worth the service if you're building a serious collection. Finally, we should remember that the condition of 1979 5p coins is also tied to their history of demonetization. After the size reduction in 1990, people turned in their large 5p coins to banks for exchange. Many of these were melted down. That means fewer pristine examples survived untouched. So while worn coins are common, uncirculated 1979 5p coins are far scarcer than they once were, making them more collectible today.